Did you just call him Greg?
I did. I don't know why.
Like old Greg? Okay, so it's Cr'aig. Craig's been fired. We have hired his cousin, Greg, Gr''EG.
I don't know. I'm kind of a bit out of my head today. So, yeah, Cr'aig is here. Or Greg, I don't know. Whichever.
It doesn't matter. Yeah. Hi, Greg or Cr'aig, whichever one is hopefully recording this properly and not crashing halfway through.
Hey, he did a good job last time, isn't he? Right? Isn't that a good boy?
Isn't that a good Cr'aig? Good Cr'aig. Yeah, he recorded perfectly last week, which is the first time in over a month.
Don't inflate his ego. He'll get too big.
Yeah. I blame the Christmas holiday. Everybody was home.
Yeah.
For a month.
Pretty much, yeah.
Yeah.
So what are we talking about today? Wait. I'm Chris.
Oh, I'm Jay.
And this is the Grumpy Dungeon Masters. Almost forgot the intro, but I didn't.
So where we like to rant and complain and talk about shenanigans. That place that Farva loves.
Speaking of shenanigans, my internet went out.
I know.
Like 10 minutes before the game was supposed to start, the internet goes out, and then it just stays dead for 3 hours. And, it was 2 hours. Sorry, 2 hours. So it was 10 o'clock, 10:10. I was like, all right, guys, it's not coming back. I'll catch you later. Sorry we couldn't do this. And I had a new player and everything. I mean, we just sat there and chit-chatted the entire time. And it was
how did you chit-chat if your internet was out?
They were on Discord, and I was on my phone. And my phone has something called the internet as well, through cellular data. And so we just chit-chatted all night, and some LARP talk.
My phone is pretty basic. I have Facebook, and that's about it.
Yeah, we talked about some LARP and some character builds and character concepts and stuff like that. Kind of introduced the new player who's going to be joining us for a couple months. And overall, it was still a good night. Just couldn't do anything. It was kind of sad.
Yeah. And talking about character builds.
Hold on. The moment I called the game for the night, and I went back in and put all my stuff away and went to go take a shower and just call it a night, the internet comes back on. Yeah.
Of course.
That's just how it goes, and just how life seems to be.
While you were not able to run your game, at least you were able to enjoy the internet for the rest of the evening.
That's true.
I mean, look, when my internet goes out, it tends to stay out. So, if it goes out, I may as well just go read a book, do something else, anything else, play video game on my PS4 or something.
I watched WandaVision. Is what I did.
I want to terribly, but I can't get behind having to wait a week for an episode. I can't do this. I grew up watching shit like that, and it was the worst thing ever.
For me,
cliffhanger. I don't want a fucking cliffhanger. I just want to watch the next episode.
But cliffhangers are so good though. Like I try to end every session on a cliffhanger. Gotta keep the audience wanting more.
It's one thing to do it in a D&D game, of which I don't normally do. I have a couple of times before left it on a cliffhanger. But in TV shows, man, it's just fucking annoying. I hate it.
I left my last session that we actually played on D&D with my wife stabbing an NPC because she was doing something that she did not like whatsoever. And I was so looking forward to getting that. I was so looking forward for that getting resolved, and I just feel sad that I couldn't.
Yeah, that's the kind of cliffhanger you want to end it on or leave it at. When I was running the Mutants and Masterminds game a few years ago, I recall one specifically where I did leave it on a cliffhanger when one of the characters actually got kidnapped by one of the supervillains.
Yeah. Well, what's actually weird too is when I ended the session on the cliffhanger, one of the players who's playing the Goliath fighter, who has an 8 charisma, but it's basically assisted in a lot of the PvP that's kind of happened in our sessions. And he basically just did the card face palm and was just like, "Oh God, we're gonna have to kill my wife's character now again."
Again.
And he kind of left it at that. So I left a cliffhanger, and they had some discussions like shortly afterwards. And one thing he said when we were talking on Discord is like, "Hey, I thought about what she did and how my character's going to respond," and it made me realize that I may have done a disservice to the game and leaving the cliffhanger at that point, because now that he's had some time to think about it off screen, he may have a different answer than will spur of the moment. Much like Elar and LARP, I don't want to have this discussion with you when we're not in play, because I can't, get the right response. I'm not going to have that moment where things are real. And I may have, because I did a cliffhanger, cheated my players out of having a real response to the game.
I don't necessarily know that cliffhangers are always sometimes the game just ends and there are things going on that you can't control, whether cliffhanger or not. Like, I'm just trying to think back when we were running. I was playing in another campaign, and our whole players had ended up in a situation that was unexpected, and then we had a few weeks. I generally do not talk to the other players much between game sessions because, one, I just don't talk to a lot of people between game sessions, and two, I don't want to alter the way things will go. But there was a conversation that ended up getting brought up between sessions that absolutely changed the entire outcome for the party.
Mm-hmm.
Like, one of the characters was willing to sacrifice themselves, and the character I'm playing would never allow that. He just wouldn't. And it should have been something that plays out in real time in game session, but instead it sort of all got metagamed, and the situation didn't resolve the way it actually would have.
Yeah. And I get it clear too on something like, I don't blame the player for thinking about it outside the game. I would have, and I do. I always think about like what my characters would do in that situation if there are cliffhangers. So like, it's normal for people to think that way. So it's not a player bad. I think it was a DM bad.
Yeah, I mean, sometimes things can't be resolved though. If it was time for the game to end, or pretty close to the time for the game to end, it's better to probably just leave it on that cliffhanger and let it resolve however it resolves.
It was definitely better for the stream, I think.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
So,
I mean, maybe if it wasn't for the stream or whatever, you guys would have played another half hour and resolved things quickly. But who knows?
Yeah, I think, and I would have probably even done it. The fight wouldn't have taken very long. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I know it wouldn't have. I know the exact scenario you're talking about. No,
so
it would not have.
I could have very easily gone 10, 15 minutes over, and the player's always very good with it. I just thought, like, okay, this is a good spot to end. Cliffhanger, show's over, guys. Meet us next week. Tune in to see the exciting finale of my wife stabbing this NPC in a chair.
Yep.
Yeah, I was so proud of her too, because she was I could see her thinking. Like, she gets like this like little face on when she's thinking real hard about something, and like she's just sitting there and like I could see her on the stream just thinking like, okay, and she's counting the squares with her finger. She's tapping the screen, like counting the squares, like, okay, and then I do this, and then she pulled up her sheet. I could see her looking at the sheet, going, okay, I'm gonna do that. I was so proud of her just running over there and just like stabbing.
Yeah, it's weird to me because this is the first time I've ever actually run a module, like a full module. This is also the first time where I've ever had two other people I know who are running the exact same module at the exact same point of that module. Because when we started this out, I started ahead of you. You managed to catch up because I tend to take a week or two break where the other DM runs here and there, whereas you're not doing that. And then Aaron, our buddy, he's also running it, and apparently we're all just at the exact same fucking point in the module, and it's so weird to me. It's because I've never actually had conversations like we've been having. Talking about how did your players handle this exact scenario? How do you think this is going to go? How should I handle this?
Yeah, that's something unique to me too. I've never had that before. I kind of had it a little bit when, in Adventures League, where the DMs would kind of get together sometimes when there were multiple DMs and like talk about like, okay, this is what we're running and this is how this monster is going to play out and this is what we think the players are going to do. But nothing to this extent. It has been very interesting seeing how each group handles things so differently. Mine's basically a homebrew at this point in time.
Yeah, you are almost a homebrew. I am very much running what's in the book.
Yeah, and it sounds like Aaron, when he's running his game, it's pretty much straight by the book as well too. He's throwing in a couple variants. Like I know he used my Dread of the Ice Devil thing. He tried to. The players told players told the NPC to fuck off, and they didn't go in and get all that cool stuff. They left behind a +1 magic mace and 5,000 gold worth of material components in that place. And let me tell you this: there's no +1 magic items in Frostmaiden, so it's gone forever.
We're halfway through the campaign, and I have not seen one yet. So
I just kind of a little bit of a quick 1 second, not spoiler, but just what I saw people doing, and I've pretty much followed the same thing for Frostmaiden for the campaign. Is the Chardalian weapons that are in the game in various locations, or even the stuff that they find can be forged into weapons. To have that break or to count as a magical weapon, kind of like the Moon Touch sword.
Yeah.
But to have the weapon do that. But if you're a DM and you've read like Chapter 3 and you saw what happens with those weapons.
Chapter 3, like literally in the introduction, it tells you that. It's actually common knowledge throughout the game.
Well, I've been treating it like no one knows. So.
Oh, okay. I mean, that's your prerogative.
Yeah.
But it is in the book that it's rare. It's not like hidden lore or anything.
Right.
Any sort of a knowledge check on those things will give away the details of it.
Well, I definitely don't have that. I was kind of waiting for them to kind of go to like a smithy and say, "Hey, what is this?" and get the answer that way. And they never did. They smith the stuff themselves. But I'm letting that be the same as the Moon Touch sword. I let it bypass magical resistance. Yeah. So I'm kind of giving them that, and a lot of other DMs gave them that as well too. But with the downside that comes with it.
Yeah. Yep. My players just went and bought Moon Touch weapons.
My players never earned enough gold.
Oh yeah, mine were lucky. They went through the right thing, and everything sort of fell into place for them. I have to say, my players have been very good about following all of the leads that are handed to them, and because of it, things have fallen into place very well throughout the campaign. They have thousands upon thousands of gold at this point. They have more money than they can actually spend in Icewind Dale.
My group's the opposite. They probably have like 150 gold between all of them.
Yeah, like we were just figuring out, the cost of, because you have to feed all of your mounts and everything else like that. And as we were going through it, I started looking through the loot sheet. Just in pocket change, they had over 300. Actually, it was about 450 gold just in pocket change. And that's not including all of the gems and everything else. And they had multiple gems worth 500 gold apiece.
Huh. Yeah, my group came across some things that had value, but like the frozen wine from the Black Cabin, it had value, and they sold it for like 40 gold for 2 kegs.
My players are still sitting on that.
my brother on the stream broke down like how many like wine glasses would have been, and like the amount of gold they walked away from was insane. But it fits their party. They're not really in for the money.
My players aren't really either. None of them are doing it for the money. They're absolutely doing it to help 10 towns.
So, kind of leads to a thought that I had because playing the Star Wars game when you were and me still doing it, they loot freaking everything. Like every member object they killed has a gun and armor that they're looting to bring back to the vendor to sell, and that's how the video games handle it. And I understand that. I've never done that in a D&D game.
Lord knows I have, and Lord knows my players have.
And my players really aren't doing that now. They did it when they went to the Durgar outpost because they had like a sled with they could pull the stuff back, and they just sold everything at half value. But I've never really had a campaign where people did that. And when I ran the Waterdeep campaign, there was hardly much gold coming out there either. But the players weren't looting any weapons to sell to the vendor and stuff like that. So how do you handle gold from monsters dropped? You just say, okay, ignore looting the monsters and selling at the vendor. Here's just the gold you get. Or do you prefer the carry everything back piece by piece and sell it to the vendor?
It varies on the campaign. The most recent one that I've run, that was my own campaign, was the Hobtown game. In that one, sometimes monsters actually had loot and money upon them. And in the scenarios where they didn't, the players would loot whatever weapons they were carrying, loot whatever armor they were carrying, and if they were able to, they would sell it.
Yeah.
Depending on what it is, nobody wants crappy goblin weapons. I'm not going to pay for 50 goblin short swords that are rickety and falling apart. But if you were bringing them 50 hobgoblin weapons, which are actually high quality manufactured, yeah, they would probably buy those at half value or possibly a quarter, depending. The location, it depends where on you're selling it at and so forth.
Yeah.
But yeah, I allow my players, it's a living, breathing world if I can make it that way. Anything they want to carry, they can. You have to find a way to carry it. Your bag of holding only carries so much. If you're going to try and throw 10 suits of plate mail armor in a single bag of holding, good fucking luck.
See, did I discuss how I handled loot distribution in 4th edition?
I don't recall you ever talking about this.
So I'll get into it then, and I apologize if we did, because I know I talked to you about it recently, and I didn't remember if it was on the podcast or not. What I did is I took a bunch of basic lands from Magic the Gathering. And
yes. Okay, yeah, you talked about this 2 weeks ago. That was the magic item distribution.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So that's how I handled loot for the players in 4th edition. So they didn't have to loot anything off the monsters. They just pulled off the board. And then, I found 50, art pieces.
Yeah, because you were telling us about Gulo, where he figured out which one was always the magic item and just kept pulling it over and over again.
Yeah. So
you cheeky bastard.
I like that one a lot, and I like that method a lot, the randomness of it. But it's just too much to manage. And in Waterdeep, like I said, I didn't do anything with them. They kind of just got some gold and some art objects every once in a while, and that's what they sold. And also, in Icewind Dale, I'm making the players use the variant rule for weight for encumbrance, and you can't carry very much. Once the battle's done and you guys are looting the stronghold, it doesn't matter because you just throw it on the sled and bring it there. But I don't want them just going through the dungeon and just throwing 15 art objects worth 750 gold apiece into their backpack and just being okay through the rest of the dungeon. You know what I mean?
Now, one thing about Icewind Dale that's neat is nobody has money. The NPCs don't have money. So if they go through and, I don't know, just say that they wipe out a dark elf fortress or something like that and loot everything in that place, throw it on their sleds and haul it back to 10 towns, doesn't matter because nobody has the money to buy it.
Yeah. And Tourmaline was my favorite thing. They basically rewarded the players in those gemstones.
Yes.
And so they went up to Lonely Wood to buy some stuff, and they had the gems, and they tried to pay with the gems. And in Tourmaline or Tourmaline.
Yeah.
They say, oh yeah, this is worth 150 gold's worth of gems, and they bring up to a line with good, and they go, okay, here's 150 gold. I'd like to buy all this stuff. He's like, yeah, that's 20 gold worth of gems. That's not worth anything here.
My players have, I think they have 10 gems worth 500 gold apiece, but there's only a couple of places in 10 towns that could even cash that out.
Yeah.
Like Bryn Shander would be able to, maybe East Haven, Bremen, but that's probably about it. None of these other small towns. Most of these towns have like 50 to 100 people that live in them. They don't have any money.
Cr'aig could, and the reason
That's the castle, or is that the other one? I can't.
It's the other one. That's the one.
Yeah, they'd be able to. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the one that people use as a base before going up on Kelvin's Cairn. So the Ranger specifically has a very well-stocked store, and the tavern is a well-stocked tavern. The inn is a pretty well-stocked inn. Just very few people live up there. So it's almost like it's a big town, but no one wants to live there.
Yeah, that's one of my players. So you meet a couple of NPCs that run the inn and tavern there, the Shorard sisters.
Yeah.
So he's his character and her hit it off. The older sister, so they're sort of a thing. This past game session, when they went back to Bryn Shander, he ended up sending her like a note and one of those casks of wine that they got from the cabin. Yeah, like he had to pay somebody 10 gold to haul that over there to her.
Nice. Speaking of variant rules, do you guys use any variant rules, like official variant rules?
No, actually, we don't. We use a couple of homebrew rules, but as far as variant rules within the book, no. Now, Tasha's had some variant stuff for characters, and when Tasha's came out, I pretty much said it to everybody in the game. I'm allowing all of those variant rules. So some spells that normally are not on spell list, they are now, so forth. I think the only thing I didn't allow was the build your own race bullshit from Tasha's.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, but I mean, I looked through it. There was nothing that was out of the ordinary. There was nothing that was broken. It was just simple little things. You have the variant ranger stuff, variant fighter things, and so forth that I thought were actually useful and would add more flavor to characters. I personally, I think 5th edition is too streamlined, so I want more stuff in the variant categories. But as far as rules per se, I'm not a big fan. I don't want to branch out too much.
Yeah. So I use the variant rule for the encumbrance, and I use the variant rule for flanking. And it's been a very contentious subject, it seems, on Twitter for some reason. I don't know why.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, the variant rule for flanking is the one that we were using in the Star Wars game, right?
It's basically if two allies are opposite a hostile creature, you have advantage on the attack roll.
Yeah, okay, so that's what we were using in the Star Wars game.
Yeah, I have used that because that was in 4th edition. And again, 4th edition is a very miniature-based combat game. Mm-hmm. And I'm using it in 5th edition because I'm playing it as a very miniature-based combat game. And I understand that. Yeah, if you're playing Theater of the Mind, then I can understand how it would be very hard to implement that because you don't have the miniatures to kind of say, "Hey, I'm flanking him. Do I get an advantage?" And there is the problem with the conga line of death that can happen, where you have ally monster, ally monster, ally monster, ally monster, and they're all just getting advantage on each other. But it doesn't happen all that often anymore.
Yeah, I wouldn't concern myself with that. The thing is, like, this is basically what you did as a rogue in 3rd edition anyway, because you had to actually be behind the target to get a sneak attack in 3rd edition. So anybody who played 3rd edition is already very familiar with how it works. Instead of sneak attack, it's just for advantage on the attacks, but it works the same way.
So the reason I brought that up is I don't remember who I saw on Twitter, but they had basically, I hate the variant rule for advantage. I think it's the worst rule in all D&D. And click on my link to see, my write-up on it. So I clicked this link to see his write-up on it. And I wanted to see if he had anything to share beyond Conga Line of Death is bad and that it's too powerful of an ability. And if he had anything beyond those 2 points that was actually worthwhile to listen to.
Mm-hmm.
He wrote 6 pages of just nonsensical ranting about how much he hated the variant rule for flanking.
So not an actual argument, just him complaining.
Yeah. And it was 6 pages about the Conga Line of Death sucks and the advantage that you get is too good. So to explain
his advantage, it doesn't matter how you're getting it, and it's also really fucking easy to get in the game.
So that's the problem a lot of people have, is that it's too easy to get, it's not risky enough, and it gives you basically +5 to your attack roll versus 4th edition when it was only +2. So
it adds a plus to the attack roll?
No. So advantage and disadvantage mathematically averages out to +5 to that roll.
I got you.
So like if you're playing a Rage Barbarian, Great Weapon Fighter Barbarian, and you take the -5 penalty to your attack roll, well, as long as you have advantage on that attack, it equalizes out. Okay? So if you have advantage, you always do the Great Weapon hit, and you're going to have it's basically a straight roll. So that's kind of the math behind it. So people think 25% chance to hit extra on an attack is too much, and that 10% is a little bit better. And I can kind of agree with that, but 5th edition works so well with advantage and disadvantage. He did go on to say in his article that he rewards players advantage when they do something inspirational, and don't get too far ahead of him, because that's already a mechanic in 5th edition as well too, where you can give somebody inspiration for doing something that's inspirational. So he basically, I think, inadvertently nerfed the inspiration mechanic, and he nerfed his own flanking mechanic.
So he's a DM.
Yeah.
And he's complaining about the flanking. Why not just not use it?
I'm gesturing. I'm shrugging right now.
Yeah,
people who can't see.
It's the same old adage that I always go to. If you don't like something, just don't participate in it.
Yeah, but 6 pages trying to convince other people to never use it and how bad it is.
I mean, it sounds like he just has nothing better to do in his life. That time he spent writing 6 pages, he could have been writing a good campaign. Instead, he spent 6 pages of wasting people's time. How much of it did you actually read? Because I feel sorry that you read that.
I wanted to see if he had any other points beyond the basic ones that I hear. And it's the same like with 4th edition. Like 4th edition, a lot of people complain about it, and it's always the same complaints. And it's not that their opinion is wrong, but they're looking at it with very skewed data, and their opinion is wrong.
If you can throw down mathematical equations and whatnot that prove that this is a terrible thing and should not be used, that's one thing. But if your only arguments are, I hate this, I mean, it is as simple as just not using it. If you're a player and your DM is using it, that's a different scenario. But if you are the game master, you're the one who has control over what rules are and are not allowed in your game.
And I take a lot of the rules and how I judge scenarios that happen, a lot on basically what has happened to me in LARP. Okay? Mm-hmm. Many times have I gone out to the field, aggroed a mob, and basically worked my way so their back was exposed to Aleph or rogue in our party.
Yeah, basically, the fighter pulls the critter so that you can get them turned so the rogue can backstab.
And then so when he's dropping 30 damage, like every half a second into the back of that monster is just dead. So you can't tell me that flanking is not a super amazing thing, because if he turns around to hit the rogue, I'm a fighter. I'm going to start putting 20 damage in every half a second into the back of it. So it's like it is good for a reason. But it's also risky because you have to put yourself on the opposite side of the creature. You can also be flanked, and at least in 5th edition, multi-attack is a thing, and it sucks if you the rogue move in to get flanking and stay there. Now, you're supposed to also move out of it, and not give the fighter flanking for his turn, but stuff happens.
That's not what the fighters are there for. The fighter is a meat shield. He's there to soak up the damage that the rogue can't.
Yeah. So I just found it odd that people are still complaining about flanking to this day.
Yeah, I saw an article the other day about how to play a fighter properly, and it was kind of a long read and kind of just it was not incorrect. Like, the guy absolutely understood how to play the fighters properly, but it was just kind of a boring read. I've been thinking that maybe at some point here soon I will start writing articles for the website again, going specifically through the player's handbook on how to play each class.
Yep.
Give my own take on it, not necessarily somebody else's.
Yeah, we definitely need to expand the website some.
Yeah, it's something we can work on. I do need to get back to writing articles. The ones I was writing were just very brief and not they while mildly entertaining, there wasn't a whole lot to them. I need motivation. I think I might have found it. So.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just funny that people are still complaining about the same things in D&D years later. It's on one hand I kind of get it, and on one hand it's just like, is there anything new to complain about?
Well, 5th edition hasn't changed. People have been complaining about the same stuff since the beginning of it. 5th edition's the worst edition ever. Blah blah blah. 4th edition's the worst edition ever. It's the same old tired arguments because people just like to complain. Rogues suck. Right?
They do.
Right?
I
think we did half a podcast on why you hate rogues.
She's working out better now that she's like level 10.
But imagine so. You've had time to actually pick up all of the skills and feats that you needed.
I basically in our last session we were fighting the abomination child between a Rancor and a Crocon from Mass Effect, or Krogan from Mass Effect. Yeah. We were fighting that. It's like a bigger Rancor that's meant to destroy planets or something. It's Terra-esque essentially in Star Wars. I got the killing blow in it because I basically built the character out to be a crit fisher, so I just jump behind it, go into the crit stance, and just hope that I crit on my 16 or better. And I did.
Yeah, that's some 3rd edition shit right there.
I did, and by golly, I murdered that thing. By golly.
Yeah, you never played 3rd, did you?
I did not, know.
Okay, because there was 3.0 and there was 3.5, and 3.0, there were some broken shit in that edition, and it was absolutely possible to crit on a 14 or higher. Yeah. Yeah, and as a rogue with a rapier critting on 14 or higher, that's just murder, instant death. So much fucking damage. I saw somebody complaining about the fighter types using thrown weapons now because they added a couple of feats in Tasha that allow you to fight better with thrown weapons. And they were saying how broken it was and how much damage they were doing. And I read it. I don't remember the exact amount of damage they said, and all I could do was fucking laugh to myself. Obviously, this person has not played with the fucking Gloomstalker Ranger Rogue Fighter combo that deals 161 fucking damage in a round of combat.
Yeah, so on that crit, I'm the crit fisher, but I'm also like I dip paladin essentially, so I have the smite too. So I have my hit, and then I have all the sneak attack, and then all the smiting. And there's something else that I can get too, at least in that game, which lets me re-roll dies if they were a 1, 2, or a 3.
I really do think that they took the World of Warcraft Ret Paladin, and that's what they built the 5th edition Paladin out of.
Kinda, yeah.
Because that's what Ret Paladins did. It was just a pure damage dealer that would get a critical that would just murder something, and that's kind of what they do in 5th edition. The idea is just to land. If you get lucky, you land a critical. You throw your smite behind it and do a stupid amount of damage.
Yeah, I kind of wish that the 5th edition archetypes changed the character more. So I've been writing a number of archetypes for the cleric recently, where basically I'm running a rhyme domain for the cleric, and I've kind of turned it since the player who's going to basically pick up cleric 1 just to be a religious zealot for the Frost Maiden. I kind of base it off of what would be best for him, and I took the Forge domain cleric and retooled it a little bit. A lot of it's the same, but change the fire stuff to cold. And what I did is I basically made him a walking blizzard, so he can use his channel divinity to summon a snowstorm around him, and he just walks around freezing everybody, and they're taking damage while they're in this little snowstorm thing. And it's just enough to be original, but still kind of a copy paste.
Yeah.
But
5th edition, I think, is pretty bad about that. And mind you, I still love 5th edition. The game runs great. It's very enjoyable. I'm having a blast with it. But I really do feel WotC, and this may have been the case with 4th edition. Yeah, so the thing is with 5th edition, I see it a lot, where I think I don't want to call it lazy, but it's just kind of boring. I do love 5th edition. It's great. I have a blast with it. But I don't see the creativity that I used to see. And I think a lot of that is, and this is specifically with the WotC stuff, not DM's Guild, but I think a lot of it's just because it's part of this massive corporation and there is so much oversight to anything and everything that's written and put into print. I look at, let's pull up Icewind Dale right now, and I want to look and see how many people. Let's see. Story creator, lead writer, Christopher Perkins. There's a writing team of about a dozen people. There's then 4 people rules development. There's a massive amount of world building. Editor. There's only one editor at least. Then you have all these other people that are attached to this thing. I was looking at a module from Basic Dungeons and Dragons the other day, and there was literally the writer and one editor, and that was it. And it was about a quarter of the thickness of that book.
Mm-hmm.
And it just reading through this thing, they spent 6 pages of it giving details of the history of how that module, like how this module comes to be. And I don't really get that from Icewind Dale. There's a lot of stuff in here, but there's so many people that work on it and so much oversight. Things have to be streamlined. There's massive time crunch. When TSR actually had control of things for Dungeons and Dragons, there was a lot of freedom to sort of do what you want. Here, I'm giving you this amount of money. Write this thing. You've got 6 months to get it done, or however long, and just you and the editor put it together.
Yeah.
And they'd release half a dozen of these things a year, if not more.
Yeah, I mean, it'd be very cool to get one of these people on and actually see if we can get an insight on how WotC hires their writers and whatnot.
Yeah, I would like to. It'd be interesting to find out.
So, it is a very large writing team. There's a lot of people here. I can kind of tell certain sections can be written by one person. Whoever their editor is went above and beyond, because they were able to kind of make it be one singular voice, which is, as a technical writer and having done this in my professional career, to take how people write and how they phrase things and make it one continuous voice is the most irritating thing ever, because essentially sometimes you're just stuck rewriting everything. So whoever did that for Icewind Dale, they deserve a promotion because you can't tell unless you really know what you're looking for. So
yeah, no, I'm definitely not shitting all over Icewind Dale. I've enjoyed the hell out of it. I just feel that they are constrained by the fact that, one, they have so many people working on it. Two, it is a corporation. They have to follow those guidelines that are set before them, and those guidelines are going to be a lot more strict than when TSR was running things.
My guess is that Icewind Dale grew out of scope, and they had to meet a deadline, and that's what kind of caused some of the confusion that's in the book.
There are editing issues in there for sure.
But I think maybe that's what may lead to your idea of them stifling creativity some, because when you write on a deadline, sometimes that can happen. I can definitely say when I've written technical documentation, and it's due in a week, I don't get as crafty or as well thought out as I probably should.
Like when I was doing cartography, I mean, we had hard deadlines we had to meet, and sometimes things just get missed or overlooked because, well, you're trying to crunch and get this shit done.
Right. But at the same time, too, Wizards seems to have this huge pool of very creative, very talented individuals that can write amazing things. And Candlekeep is the best example of this because it's coming out here soon. And it's 17 different authors that they've never used before. Like brand new authors that they've never had involved in any of their books. And
speaking of which,
they're all writing their own unique individual story that probably they handed over to WotC and they kind of like assemble it all together. But at the same time, that's a lot of new blood in there. And this book is specifically made to find more up and coming writers for Dungeons and Dragons.
So we talked about what book was coming out. One, what we talked about on the podcast, totally wrong. It was not Feywild. It was Candlekeep. The shit part is, you had told me a couple of weeks before that Candlekeep was one of the possibilities.
Yeah, I did.
And then we never fucking mentioned it on last week's podcast.
No, we didn't.
We just didn't mention it at all.
Nope. I was so convinced it was Feywild.
Yep. I mean, that Feywild is mostly what we talked about. I think you mentioned it might be Dragonlance or something, but that was
another option.
That was it. We never mentioned Candlekeep, which doesn't actually surprise me because hooray, more Sword Coast, yay!
So somebody posted an image on the Candlekeep Twitter when they announced it. The Candlekeep post when they announced it on Twitter. Get my words straight. And he basically put up a map of the Faerun, and he basically highlighted the Sword Coast, and basically dimmed out the rest of Faerun. And in the Sword Coast area, he wrote the remembered realms, the true forgotten realms. He wrote on the dim side.
Yeah. I haven't seen it, but that's very fucking appropriate. Come on, guys. Give us Honorrock. Give us Thay. Give us Cormyr. Like, there are so many other places that are not fucking Sword Coast.
The problem is that there's so much there. You can write a campaign setting for Waterdeep, Neverwinter, Baldur's Gate, Candlekeep. What was the other city? What's the other major city? Forgot. Anyways, but then you have all the minor towns in there, like the Phandalin, thing that comes in the starter set. There's so much there.
There's so much everywhere.
Right, but
it's a world, man. There's so much more than just that one little tiny section. That's like saying that only New York and Los Angeles matter. There's this massive country with all these other locations with places that matter, but only New York and LA matter.
Now, Houston matters some too.
It does. It's starting to now, but you understand.
And Maine, there's Disney World close by. Charleston's a great place. There's lots of history
and
here.
Alabama matters.
Alabama doesn't matter. Cut that out. I don't want them knowing.
Yeah, my point still stands. There are so many other locations that could be written about, but everything they've done has just been Sword Coast. Like
Well,
for 5th edition, there's nothing anywhere else other than the one. Was it the one we talked about last week?
yeah,
With the jungle and shit.
Cholt.
Yeah, Cholt. Like nothing else anywhere there.
Well, Icewind Dale.
Icewind Dale is damn near Sword Coast. It's just north of it.
And Cholt is just south of the Sword Coast.
Yeah.
Well,
Like it's all West Coast, man. Fucking represent the East Coast. I'm throwing up East Coast gang signs right now. You just can't see it.
I don't know what the East Coast of the Fate Run even is.
That's where Thay is at. That's where this Sea of Fallen Star. I think it's Sea of Fallen Stars is. Anarok is that direction. The Great Desert where Netheril used to be.
So I think a lot of that may be just people are not familiar with that nowadays.
Maybe there was a lot of stuff for it in 3rd edition. There was a shitload of it in 2nd edition.
Yeah, but
there's an entire Oriental setting from 3rd edition. I have the book for it, and it was far to the east. It was called the Far East.
Yeah, but we can do another Magic the Gathering. Like, let's do an official one for Ravnica. But they already have one for that. For Zendikar.
Yeah. I'm sure Zendikar's next. I have no doubt Zendikar is next.
It's already out.
Oh, okay. Well, never mind. See, I'm behind the times.
Well, they have Ravnica, and they have Theros, and then they have a few other like setting booklets, like little mini PDFs.
Yeah, I have those. Yeah, the ones you got off of DM's Guild for free. Like I downloaded all of those.
I still would want to run a Zendikar campaign setting, and it's just going to end with the Eldrazi showing up and killing everybody.
Just when Emrakul shows up and eats the world.
Tentacles.
Yep. It's like a Terras showing up. Yeah, that's how that works.
Yeah. We had a discussion about Terras recently. Anyway, again, because, you know...
me and you are always talking about the Terrask.
Who would win, one Terrask or 20 Wizard Boys with Polymorph Turtle?
I still go with the Terrask.
20 Wizard Boys with Polymorph Turtle.
Yeah, here's the thing. I mean, I guess maybe, but man, that's going to be their life. That's all they get to do for the rest of their life. They have to build a giant fucking cage with a bunch of smaller cages that they can then put the turtle in. So that giant cage is where they put the Terrask. And then they have to all cast Polymorph because he's going to resist a lot of them. But sooner or later, all right, it'll stick. Well, he auto resists 3 of them, and then he's going to succeed a few times.
Yeah.
But one of them will succeed. Now, how long? I got to look this up now. How long does Polymorph last? See, now we're doing what I enjoy. I'm rules lawyering this shit. Polymorph concentration up to 1 hour. So how many? They're going to have to cast Polymorph multiple times throughout the day, at least a minimum of 24 times, just to keep this thing in turtle form. And if it takes any damage, it's going to come out of turtle form and then just do what Terrash do. I don't foresee this working well.
Well, so I have to compare that to another RPG style game called Warhammer 40,000. I don't know if you've heard of it. Where
nope,
they have the God Emperor, and in order to maintain his failing life force, they have to sacrifice, what is it, like 10 billion people a day?
Yeah, something like that.
They can live with 20 magic boys casting Polymorph Turtle on somebody. They'll be fine.
Maybe. The thing is, actually, you could do a whole campaign of this. I just got to thinking about this. So what you do is you run a campaign where wizards have actually been keeping the Terrask locked up. And, when he pops up every 100 years or every 10 years or so, it's because the wizards fuck up and he gets out. So they've successfully kept him locked up for about 100 years. Some other evil big bad guy finds out about it and goes in and interrupts their polymorph ritual just to let the Terrask out. So then the players have to, hunt down the big bad guy who did this, and then they have to go hunt down the Terrask and get the cycle started all over again. Which means they have to then find a whole bunch of, wizard polymorph boys, as you've been calling them, I think. If anyone wants to play this campaign, I'm sure Chris will be running it sometime next year. just ask him about it.
I'm thinking of like almost a buddy comedy movie where, like with Seth Rogen and the guy, and
I think we do Mark Wahlberg and Will Ferrell again.
They have the turtle, and they got to get it back to the wizards to keep the polymorph spell going, but stuff keeps getting in their way.
Yep, you get 1 hour. Actually, maybe they've managed to maintain it. It lasts for 24 hours. You have 24 hours to get this fucking turtle back into the cage.
And then at the very end, when they get the turtle back in the cage, somebody trips and falls on the turtle, dealing like 1d4 damage.
Yep. And the turtle can't take damage. If it takes damage, it's game over, man.
And then what the secret is? What the big reveal twist at the end is? After the turtle takes damage, it's just a turtle.
Just a turtle.
And then a Terrask pops up on the other side of the city.
Yep. Yeah. Little did anyone know it was a fake Terrask. The actual Terrask in turtle form is on the other side of the city, being held down by a wizard polymorph board.
Yeah, the pet shop where Gizmo lived.
Oh, pet shops. My players in pet shops, man. They have this thing. There was a campaign I ran a while back, short-lived campaign, where they ended up killing the owner of the pet store. Don't ask. I don't remember how they got into that scenario. So instead of just trying to hide the body, they burned down the store.
Aw.
Well, no, they actually were standing inside, grabbing crates of animals, throwing them out of the store, pretending to be good Samaritans.
I'm gonna anger some gods that way.
Yeah, these are the players I deal with.
Well, on that note.
Yep, wait for me to bring this podcast to a fucking crashing halt.
Just Canary's like, tweet, save me! Fire.
Yep.
Brimstone. All right. Have a good night, everybody.
Thanks for listening, guys. See you next time. Biggity bam, we're out of here.
No catchphrases.
That's my catchphrase.
No catchphrases. We don't do catchphrases.
We were given a few. What were they? Next week. Next week we'll have.